Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala ashraf al-anbiya'i wal-mursaleen. Sayyidina wa habibana Muhammadan wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. ما شاء الله قوة إلا بالله. Alhamdulillah, Tabarak wa Ta'ala. This is some of the recordings. Don't mind what you heard. Some of the numbers are mixed up. Go by the numbers that you see, inshallah. So tonight should be the 11th part. And we changed some of that in the titles of the YouTube and on the Facebook, the YouTube, imamshaykhukkahsah, and on the markets we changed some titles around, but you're going to still hear the mistakes I made in the recording, saying number 6 and number 6 again and all of this stuff. So may Allah guide me, make it easy. This is 11th, part 11. We didn't finish last night the statements of Imam al-Nawawi and the Salaf of Ahlul Sunnah concerning the issues of the hand. Still have to finish that. But I want to deal with some issues tonight we may not get to. The rest of the chapter of the Sifat about the hands and the fingers. We still have the Qadam, the sack, region, such as the Prophet said, Al-Qulub al-Ibad bayna asab al-Rahman, yuwalli kayfa yasha. That the hearts of the servants, meaning people, then between the two fingers of Rahman, he turns them however he wishes. Like the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he mentioned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lahu qadam, he has a foot. Allah tabarak wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah Al-Qaf that the hellfire will say Hal min mazid, and Allah the Prophet said in that hadith concerning that, the hellfire said, is there any more? I'm for. And the Prophet described in the hadith of Sahih, Allah will put his qadam over the hellfire and say that's enough. The Prophet also mentioned, as Allah mentioned, Surah Al-Haqqa, Yawma يكشف عن ساق ويدعون إلى سجود ولا يستطيعون. On the day when Allah will uncover his saqah, his shin, and they will be commanded to prostrate to it, and they will not be able to, mean the kuffar and munafiqeen. The Prophet also mentioned that Allah has rigid. In some narrations said rigid, meaning he described the foot with the word rigid, which rigid in the Arabic language also means sometimes the foot, meaning the whole foot with the shin and everything attached to it. These are statements that you have to bring what Imam al-Nawawi said, وَهَوْلَا أَشَائِرْ والمعطلة والجهمية والمعتزلية في هذه صفات الله جل في علاه. These sifat, these descriptions and actions of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, the Most High, in the and above the heavens now. But tonight we want to deal with the issue that many people keep asking about. They are the Asha'ira using Imam al-Nawawi out front again. And they also, in trying to justify what they say, what they believe, they bring other Imams and say, well, these Imams were Ash'ari too. So the Ash'aris are really Ahlul Sunnah. And we'll mention what the scholars say. There's a debate about that. Some say the Ash'aris are Ahlul Sunnah. Some say no, they're Ahlul Bid'ah or Hakaka. But tonight we want to mention the issue of burning the Quran. That was asked. And is it true that Uthman had the Quran burnt during his lifetime, and why? We want to deal with that. And it's related to this issue of someone mixing up or misrepresenting the Quran as to why Uthman, if he did that or not, why we were mentioning that, because it's connected to people misinterpreting or mixing up the Quran, like what these Asha'ir, Mu'taziliyah, and Jahmiyyah are doing. We want to also mention those shuyukh that they also say, using as the evidence, those Imams, Imam Ibn Hajar Asqalani, what the ulama say about him. Was he from the Imams Ahlul Sunnah or the Imams of Asha'ir? Is he from the Imams of Islam? Yes, but is he Imam from the Imams of Ahlul Sunnah, or is he Asha'ir in his creed? Imam Hajar ibn Asqalani, Sahib Bulugh al-Maram, Sahib Mada Fath al-Bari, Sheikh Sayyid al-Bukhari. كذلك الإمام محمد بن أحمد بن عثمان الذهبي رحمة الله عليه، صاحب ماذا سيرة لبنان، سيرة علم نبلاء، and صاحب ماذا تاريخ خبير، وكذلك صاحب كتاب العلو، the book where he mentions that Allah is above everything. That Imam al-Dhahabi, صاحب كتاب al-Kabair. Imam al-Dhahabi, is he from the Imams of Ahlul Sunnah, or is he from the Imams of the Asha'ir? وكذلك ماذا الإمام أبي فداه أماد الدين حافظ شيخ الإسلام ابن كثير البصري نعم رحمة الله عليه الشافعي. Is he from the Imams of Ahlul Sunnah, or is he from the Imams of the Asha'ir? And last but not least, ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله, Imam Abi Bakr ماذا البيهقي رحمة الله عليه. Is he from the Imams of Ahlul Sunnah, or is he from the Imams of the Asha'ir? And of course we didn't mention Imam Nawawi because we're dealing with that. So these are other Imams that they use to state their evidence, and they're following the ways of these great Imams. They were Ash'ari as well. They said again, Mada Ibn Hajar Asqalani. Well, we already mentioned Nawawi, so we say Nawawi at the top. Ibn Hajar Asqalani, Mada Imam al-Dhahabi, Imam Ibn Kathir, and Imam Bayhaqi rahmatullah alayhim ajma'in. So let's start with what's most befitting the shubhat about Uthman. And I'm bringing this because if this happened during Uthman's time, then you see the importance of dealing with this issue with regards to our time and what happened in the times of those imams, why this has to be dealt with. Because any changing or substituting of the Quran in general is wrong. Any changing or substituting of the Quran in general is wrong. It's kufr. It's disbelief. It is something that's bid'ah mukaffirah, is a major bid'ah that takes a person outside of Islam. We have ayat from the Book of Allah, hadith of the Prophet, and we have after the Salaf to prove that. We've mentioned most of that in these series. So the question is, did Uthman radiyallahu ta'ala anhu burn the Quran? And in fact, someone sent me an audio of one of the du'at. He was talking about the people who want to burn the Quran these days, like these pastors and these evil ministers. So the person said, he told them, come on, you want to burn Quran? I'll burn Quran too. I can burn more than you. For each Quran you burn, I'll bring 10. And, he was hyping this thing up. And he said, what did our prophet encourage us about burning the Quran? If there's something with the Quran that's desecrating it, or something that people are doing bad to it, or people take some ayat out of it, what did the Prophet command us? The Prophet didn't first give us any advice about burning the Quran. That's a mistake. Maybe he made a slip of a tongue. That sheikh, who's an American sheikh who has studied, maybe I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, he meant the Sahaba. The Prophet did not instruct anybody in anything authentic that I know of to burn the Quran. He said, don't travel to the lands of the kuffar with the Quran. He told them, don't write anything but the Quran. And many scholars said the reason that Nabi Sallam and Taktub Ghayr Quran, that he told them don't write anything other than Quran during this time. Allah يختلطوا بين القرآن وبين الكلام البشرية, so that they wouldn't mix Quran with the statements of humans. The Prophet said, don't write down anything from me except Quran. Meaning, don't write hadith. Hadith was not written down till some said the time of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. Some call him the fifth Khalifa to Rashid, who was the grandson of Umar ibn al-Khattab. 41 years, roughly, somewhere around there, they started to write down hadith. As Imam Muhammad ibn Sirin and the likes of those ulama of the past said, Sammu Rijal, name your men. فَلَمَّا اختلطوا الرواية وكذبوا على النبي قالوا إليهم سموا رجالكم. When they start to mix up the chains and lie on the Prophet and misquote the Prophet, then that's when we, the ulama of the Tabi'een, Ahlul Sunnah, we told those people, of bid'ah, name your men so we could, refute who's saying what. So Rasulullah said, don't write anything but the Quran. During his time, they started writing hadith after his death, because by then the Quran was already memorized in the hearts of men. The Prophet had scribes during his time. Every time something would come down according to incident. As the Quran, Nazala, Jumlatan wa Tafsila. It was revealed all at one time to Jibreel, but to the Prophet over a period of 23 years based upon different things that took place. Allah would then reveal something to the Prophet. So it's impossible that everybody had the same amount of ayat and the same amount of surah. It's impossible. So Prophet had different people that he would call whenever that wahi would come down, and they would write. So that's why he had the likes of Abu Bakr, he used to write. And he had what he would write down if he was there when the Prophet called for somebody to write. And at times, if Abu Bakr wasn't there, or someone else, like Umar ibn Khattab, he wrote. Ali ibn Abi Talib, if he was there, he wrote. Ubay ibn Ka'b, he wrote. وكذلك ماذا زبير بن عوام, he wrote. وزيد بن حارث, he wrote. وكذلك معاذ بن جبل, he wrote. وكذلك ماذا جملة من الصحابة كان كتاب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, كتاب الوحي. They were the scribes who wrote down the revelation. Some scholars said as many as 43 of them had that task during the time of the Prophet. So وكذلك عائشة رضي الله تعالى عنها وكذلك حفصة. These are the people that used to write down the Quran for the Prophet sallallahu wasallam alayhi. So this, the Prophet said, don't write down anything other than Quran during his time. And before he died, Jibril came and the Prophet had them write it down in tartib, the way that we have it today, from Al-Fatiha ila Surah Al-Nas. Jibril went over it with the Prophet, and the Prophet had the Sahaba write it down just like that. When the Prophet died, Abu Bakr, because of the Harub al-Ridda, the war against those who wouldn't pay the zakat, and also the Ma'araka the one in which I forget the name of it, it slips in my mind. However, it's one of the biggest ones where they lost, some said, at least 70 Hufaf. They were fighting Musaylim al-Kadab and his his people. At that point, Abu Bakr had the people to write the Quran down again in order. Radiyallahu ta'ala. When he died, then that copy went to, before he died, he gave it to who he appointed as Khalifa, Umar ibn al-Khattab. And before Umar died, he gave it to Hafsa. So Hafsa had that copy, that original copy that came from what the Nabi had Abu Bakr write, what Abu Bakr had transcribed over when all of the Kufar got killed in that, those two incidents. Then, before he died, he gave it to Al-Faruq, and Al-Faruq, before he died, gave it to his daughter, Zawj al-Nabi Hafsa, and so now you come to Uthman as the Khalifa. And the people now, from the generation of the Tabi'een, some narrations said that they were fighting about ayah. And Hudayfa ibn Yaman went to deal with them, and he came back to Uthman and he said, why don't you do something about what the Prophet sent to us, because if not, it's going to be bloodshed again. They're fighting over the ayah. Like Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala in some recitations, and you have Maliki Yawm ad-Din and Maliki Yawm ad-Din. You have the Prophet being taught that by Jibreel. You have some narrations where Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala mentioned, for example, ماذا واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام والفتحة in Surah Nisa والأرحام and also it's authentic والأرحامي, which والأرحامي is like saying and those who they swear by, like swearing by your mother. So Allah is not saying that you could swear by your mother, because we know the Prophet said, "Man halafa bi ghayri Allahi faqad ashrak." Whoever swears by other than Allah is made minor shirk. But Allah is telling them to fear Him, just like those mothers that used to swear by, fear Allah, the same way that they feared and honored those mothers. Like Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala mentioned with regards to those forefathers, Allah said, "Aw ashadda dhikra," to remember Him like they used to remember their forefathers, or even greater than that. So Allah is not telling them to make shirk, but He's using this language to show that which they used to do. So therefore, the two ways that وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ الَّذِي تَسَاءَلُونَ بِهِ وَالْأَرْحَامَ وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ الَّذِي تَسَاءَلُونَ بِهِ وَالْأَرْحَامِ. So some people, if they didn't hear of that qira'ah, they thought that you were making a mistake. Just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned فَتَبَيَّنُوا وَفِي قِرَاءَةٍ فَتَثَبَّتُوا. So some tabi'een had فَتَثَبَّتُوا, affirming. فَتَبَيَّنُوا, clarifying. So one who didn't hear the other thought, wait a minute, that's not what it's supposed to be. No, that's not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be. It became like almost bloodshed. So what Uthman did, which was different from what Abu Bakr did, the scholar said. Abu Bakr, had the Quran written. But Uthman called for the people who knew the Quran to write the Quran. So it's different when you have scribes and they write, and you have ulama, they write. These are ulama of the Quran. So he could tell them, write all of the ayats that's abrogated. They would know that, meaning they have been abolished. He can say, write down all of these ayat that the Prophet gave you the reason they were revealed. They will write that down, Bab al-Nuzul, Sabab al-Nuzul. He can say, okay, write down, Qira'atu Sab'a wal Ashr. Write down the 7 ways that the Prophet, Jibreel told him, read it like this, read it like this, read it like that. That's the difference between Abu Bakr having people write it down during the time of after the time of the Harub al-Ridda and the war which they were fighting against Musaylim al-Kadhab, and Uthman's time. Uthman called for the ulama, such as Zayd ibn Mada al-Harith, and Sayyid ibn Waqas, and Abdul Rahman Abdullah ibn Harith ibn Hisham, and the likes of these ulama that he knew that they knew these things. So he had them burn all of the copies of the Mus'haf, and then he called for these 4 people. Zubair ibn Awam, كذلك ماذا حارث ابن زيد بن حارث زبير بن عوام سعيد بن عاص and ماذا عبد الله بن هشام عبد الله بن Harith ibn Hisham. Those 4 wrote everything, and that's why today we have Mushaf Uthmani. Mushaf Uthmani. And many others have their Mushaf written. You have Mushaf that you don't hear of, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Mushaf Aisha. You had Mushaf Hafsa, but these were the 4 that in the end Uthman ibn Affan went with and had copies written, and then sent to all of these places with an imam to teach the people. You had the Mus'haf of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Hakada Nam, the Ratsa, the Ulama of the Quran, wa ulumih, and the imams of the Quran and all of the knowledge connected to the ulum. So this is true, but this is why Uthman had that, because it was about to be bloodbath over this issue. And if this is something that is permissible, if the Quran is desecrated or pages are missing or ayats or rolled on or anything defaced or to alter tabdeel or harif or tabdeel, to omit or to change the meaning, will allow the people to burn the Quran by ijtihad and to keep it from being altered. Then what about when we talk about these issues that we're talking about? Authorization has to be dealt with, has to be refuted, has to be clarified. Now, lazim al-luzum. Now, so that issue we want to mention. And Shaykh al-Muqbil, he was asked with regards to the different recitations, does the Quran have to be mutawatiratun amla? Do you have to have multiple narrations to accept a particular recitation? Because some recitations, like وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ الَّذِي تَسَاءَلُونَ بِهِ وَالْأَرْحَامِ, it's shaf, meaning it goes against the multiple narrations of wal-arhama wal-fatha. But it's sahih. It's sahih. It's not sahih. So the Shaykh, he said, Imam Muqbil, he said, imamshaykhukkahsah, he mentioned in his Nail Al-Awwal, he mentioned in that famous 5th book that نقل عن إمام الجزري, he mentions from Imam al-Jazri, that Imam al-Jazri mentioned this line of poetry to prove that even if it's a narration that is different from the well-known many narrations, as long as the isnad is sahih, then we take that recitation. So whether it's 7 or 10, some said 7, mutawatiratun. The other 3, sahih but not mutawatiratun. Mutawatiratun means some scholars have said more than 10 different narrations to prove that thing. Below 10 has names Azizan, من الاثنين إلى 10 عزيز، أدنى من الاثنين riwayat al-ahad means it's singular. And many scholars made a ruling that they won't accept if it's singular because they don't want to take a chance allowing the Prophet. But yeah, I mean, we have so many different texts that's hadith and ahad maqbul. It's accepted, such as the hadith of Innam al-A'mal bin-Niyat. It's only narrated on one companion, and that is from Umar ibn al-Khattab. Maqbul. The hadith where the Prophet said, and it's the last hadith in the Sahih of Imam Bukhari. He brought this at the end for a reason, which is a refutation against those people, the Ahnaf, and those other people that say you can't take a single narration. He brought in the end of his Sahih Imam Bukhari the narration where Allah said, the Prophet said, pardon me, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kalimatani latifatani ala lisani ahabba ila Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala subhanallah walhamdulillah. So subhanallah wa bihamdi, subhanallah wa bihamdi, wa subhanallah al-azim. Subhanallah wa bihamdi. So say subhanallah and to praise Allah. Subhanallah wa bihamdi, wa subhanallah al-azim. Those two are the most beloved statements to Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. Kalimatani khafifatan lisani, yani thaqilan ala mizani. They're light on the tongue, heavy on the scale. And the statement of the Prophet that ahabba asma ilallah, Abdurrahman wa Abdullah, those are hadith ahad. One narrator, ahad, and they are accepted by everybody, including the Ahnaf. They believe that. Subhanallah wa bihamdi wa subhanallah azim, from the greatest adhkar, light on the tongue, heavy on the scale, and also the most beloved names to Allah that you can name, Abdurrahman wa Abdullah. Now, so this, when you go back to the issue, what Imam al-Jazari said about this, 7 recitations, 10 recitations, do they have to be unanimous? Then Sheikh Mukbil said that Imam al-Shawkani naqala an Imam al-Jazari wa kullu ma wafaqa nahu wa kullu ma wafaqa وكل ما وفق نحوي وكل ما وفق نحوي وكان وكل ما وفق وجه النحو وكان برسم إمام يهوي وصح إسناد فهو قرآن هذه 3 أركان. So the Shaykh, he gave explanation to this bait, this line of poetry, Imam Muqbil, that Imam al-Shawkani naqala min Imam al-Jazari. Imam al-Jazari, from the scholars who is known mostly when you talk about Tajweed al-Quran and these issues regarding to the regard to the Tajweed and the Qira'ah. But he has books of tafsir, books of hadith. I mean, he was an all-around scholar, Imam al-Jazari. Now, so this first statement that Imam al-Jazari mentioned, which proves that as long as something has these characteristics, it's accepted. Even if it's irregular, even if it's not like the other multiple narrations of a recitation, it's still accepted. Kullu ma wafaqa wajhi nahwi. If it agrees with the rules of nahu, the rules of nahu meaning sentence structure, that which would determine how the sentence is structured. So for example, to say ذهب which means past tense, he went. Who went? Muhammadun. Muhammadun is Muhammadun because he's the one who went. Ila means towards or and to some place that he stopped at. Al-Masjidi. So Nahu here would mean the sentence ends with Masjidi al-Masjidi. Why? Because ila came before al-Masjidi. And Muhammadun is Muhammadun because he's the door, and dhahaba is past tense, mabni ala al-fatha, la mahal laha min al-i'rab. And the past tense verb is always with the fatha, never changes. It doesn't move. Laysa bi mu'rabin, dhamma, kasra, aw fatha. It doesn't have the ability to either be dhamma, fatha, or kasra, or dhammatan, fatha, kasratan. La. Only fatha. That's the past tense verb. Mabni ala fatha. Now, if you changed it, you say dhahaba. Okay, we're going to change the doer. This is all showing what's nahu. You say the one who's doing the action and the action is together. The one who's doing the action and the action is together. So I'm speaking and I'm doing a past tense action. So I would say marwartu, from marra to pass. Marwartu. The tu is me, the talker. Marra is the action past tense. So I would say marwartu bi Muhammadin. Marwartu bi Muhammadin. So what changes in the sentence? The past tense verb, the normal will be marra, somebody passed. So Muhammadun, Muhammadun. He passed, Zaydan. Zaydan is going to be with fathatan because Zayd is the one that was passed by Muhammad. But in this case, I'm saying the speaker, marwartu, I passed by. So you have marra, past tense verb, and the two conjugated verb, mutakallam is for the one who's speaking. That's how you say I pass. And then Muhammadun would change because you would say be Muhammadin. By, be is going to be by, and Muhammad becomes Muhammadin. This is nahu. This is what's called nahu, the changing of the sentence. Al-Awwal, the one who's doing action, التغيير أوامر أواخر كلمات, how the end of the word changes. That's the definition of nahu. Nahu, the grammar. And then you have الصرف, أوزان أفعال, how the verb changes. فعل فعل تفعل فعل 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 فعل. That's the verb pattern. So when you talk about these two things together, this is what Imam al-Jazari is being quoted by Imam al-Shawkani, and now Imam Muqbil said, everything that agrees with that science is the first thing. If it doesn't agree with the science of Nahu, you know it's not Quran. You can't say this is the way that you read it. Has to agree with the science of Nahu. The second thing, وَكَانَ لِلْإِمَامِ رَسْمِ يَهْوِي. وَكَانَ لِلْإِمَامِ رَسْمِ يَهْوِي. And it has to be approved by the Imam. He said that Imam is Uthman ibn Affan. And then he said, وَصَحَّ إِسْنَادُ وَصَحَّ إِسْنَادُ. صح إسناده يتضمن إذا كان حسن أخف من الصحيح. وصح إسناده. The إسناد ليس به يعل. It doesn't have a hidden defect. ولا ماذا منكران. Can't be what's considered munkaran. Somebody in the chain is not known to be a person of knowledge, and he says what's in opposition. If the person in the chain is known to be a person of knowledge, and he says something that's different from the other many narrations, then you look at the chain first. And if the chain is sahih, then although it may be shadh, huwa riwayatin sahih. It is a narration that you take because of the chain. وَصَحَّ إِسْنَادُ فَهُوَ قُرْآنُ وَصَحَّ إِسْنَادُ وَهُوَ قُرْآنُ. As long as the chain is sahih, yani authentic, on the highest or lowest level, then it's considered Quran. And then the Sheikh say in the end, وَهَذِي ثَلَاثَةُ أَرْكَانُ. And these are the three principles, conditions that make something Quran. If it agrees with the science of Nahu, if it was approved by Imam al-Rasmi, Uthman ibn Affan, when can isnad sahih for Qur'anu, hadi thalathatu orkanu. Now, so this, we mentioned the issue of the different narrations from the time of Uthman, and now, yani, people, Allah musta'an, baddala wa yuharrif, changing the meaning, yani, or just omitting the ayah. And you see the evil in this. The evil in this. And just because something is read in a way that you didn't know, just because something is read in a way that's not mashhuran, it's not the well-known way, just because something is read in the way laysa bi mutawattiratun, it is not yani from the unanimous, undisputable riwayat chains that it's read like that, doesn't mean that it's not sahih. And this is why you have an ahraf al-sab'a al-ashir, yani you have 7 or the 10 ways that the Prophet recorded that it was given to him from Jibril. And this yani is why the issue is serious, to have inayat to the Quran, respect for the Quran, to have yani mada difa an tahrif wa tabdil kitab Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that it must be protected, defended, yani. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kallafa yani al nafsihi an yuhafiz yani kalamahu, that Allah has made it binding on himself, he will protect it. However, from amongst the way that Allah sought was through yani the people of ilm, from the ulama of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah min Salaf hadhi ummah, from the Salaf of this ummah, yani hadithan wa yani past or present. Now, so that issue we want to deal with regards to Uthman and the issue of burning the Quran. The Prophet did not advise it, and why did Uthman do it? And it's the same issue that we're dealing with regards to dealing with this issue, the issue of preventing the Book of Allah from being changed or replaced. As it relates to yani Imam al-Dhahabi, Imam al-Shamsuddin al-Dhahabi, we want to mention first, some ulama, they try to say that astaghfirullah, in the beginning he was very amazed with Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, because you know he was during that time. Woman Talmidi Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. He's from the pupils, the students of Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, such as Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah wa Imam Ibn Kathir. كل هذه من تلاميذ شيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية, all from the students of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah. Some have said Ibn Taymiyyah meant Talamidi Imam al-Nawawi. But the Sahih, some said he didn't really get to study with Imam al-Nawawi. He was a kid, he was there, and then Imam al-Nawawi died, and some people just say because he met him and said in a couple of lessons as a child, he's from the students of Imam al-Nawawi. If you want to say that, then fine. But the real matter is Imam al-Dhahabi definitely telling me the ala Yaday Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. He studied on the hands at the feet of the Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. So some try to say, check it out, their speech is that Imam al-Dhahabi was 20, 21, very influenced, ta'athara bi Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, وكان تعذر به شديدا كان أجب به كثيرا إلى حد القلوب, that he was very impressed and affected and amazed with Ibn Taymiyyah. So they say much of what he wrote in the beginning was against the belief of Ahlul Sunnah. Why? Who's saying this? The Asha'ira, because they believe they're Ahlul Sunnah. So basically what Imam al-Dhahabi was writing in the beginning, they said he was just puppeting Ibn Taymiyyah, and because of the influence of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, and he really was young and rambunctious and all over the place. That's what they're saying. He wrote a book called Al-Awwal, Allah being above everything. So of course they're going to attack that book, because that book is a dalil against their whole program. Now, so they said that was in the beginning of his life, and when Imam Ibn Taymiyyah died, لما توفي الشيخ الإسلام تيمية, then Imam al-Dhahabi started seeking ilm on the hands of other ulama. They mentioned, Allah Musta'an, Subki, وهؤلاء أمثال أهل البدع. Okay, they said now he became more affected by the Asha'ir, who is Ahlul Sunnah. They said if you read like his book Sirah Alam Nubala, you'll see him having different opinions now. You'll see him making some mistakes in Asma wa Sifat. But we would say mistakes in Asma wa Sifat, Ahlul Sunnah, the Salaf, and the ulama of the Salaf. But they're saying his mistakes were right. He became a person who was given ta'wil to the Sifat like them, so he became upon Sunnah. To where when he was saying Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala was above everything in his early days, he was astray, he was all over the place. But then when you've seen him later on, Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah died, and he referenced the likes of his books, the Sirah, Alam Nubala, then you'll find him coming to his senses, becoming more educated, becoming more balanced. Thus he became on the way of Ahlul Sunnah. So he's making ta'til and ta'rif and giving these different meanings like them. Allahu Musta'an. Kada. Allahu Musta'an. Also, when we talk about this issue, Imam al-Dhahabi, ulama were asked about Imam al-Dhahabi. Like in our time, Shaykh al-Muqbil was asked about him. كذلك Shaykh al-Albani, Shaykh al-Uthaymeen, Shaykh Uthman al-Qamis from Kuwait. said Imam al-Dhahabi Imam Ahlul Sunnah. وإن وقع في زلل أو شيء من أخطاء, even if you have some mistakes here and there, they said, but know for surety, if you have any mistakes in his Asma wa Sifat, is Khalil.
Yasir. Now, Yasir. But they said we don't know Imam al-Dhahabi to have mistakes in his aqidah like this. Allah almost that. Hasbullah wa ni'mal wakil. And if he again have some mistake, everybody could be right or wrong except the Nabi. But when you look at the books of Imam al-Dhahabi, Kitab al-Kaba'ir, some people try to say he wasn't a faqih, he doesn't have books of fiqh, he was just a person of history, and he really didn't know the chain of men that good, so don't rely on what he says, especially when he talks against the Ash'ari. Are you serious? Remember that if you just read his Kaba'ir, he showed you his fiqh. Kitab al-Kaba'ir. And the ulama, before I leave Imam al-Dhahabi and go to the next person, Shaykh Abdul Razak mentioned this. He said, when you talk about Kitab al-Kaba'ir, there's two versions. You have a version that has a lot of hadith is da'if. You have fabrications, a lot of fabrications. And they attribute this to Imam al-Dhahabi. He said, but then there's a copy that's written, when you look at and go through that kaba'ir, you know the rajah annahu minhu, that the possibility that this one is really from him because of his knowledge in the area of hadith. Imam al-Dhahabi, if you go to the books of Rijal, you go and any research about hadith, he's one of the main people that knows the people in the chain, knows their pedigree, know if these people were people bid'ah or not. Allah understands. So how's he going to have a book of hadith or fiqh or anything like a kaba'ir, and he's going to have fabrications and hadiths to him be wada'i, suspected of lying, and these all. So Shaykh Abdul Razak said, so the one that fits his knowledge and reputation, we know that this is the one that he really wrote. As for the one that they put his name on and say, Imam al-Dhahabi wrote it, Kaba'ir, is full of hadith is da'if and fabrications, said then we don't attribute that to Imam al-Dhahabi, rahimahullah ta'ala. Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani said, Kana Ashri. Sheikh Muqbil was asked, وكذلك Imam al-Nasr, Sheikh Nasr al-Albani, Ibn Uthaymeen was asked, they said, من أئمة أهل السنة have some issues of asma wa sifat. They were affected by the Ash'ari of that time. But all you have to do is go through his Mada Fath al-Bari, Sharh Sahih Bukhari, which Allah blesses to study that whole work in the match. There's no way you're going to study that book and say he's from the Ash'ari, he's from the Ahlul Bid'ah. Allah Musta'an. Although some people try to say it, most of the scholars say he's from Ahlul Sunnah, وإن وقع في شيء هو من أئمة Islam, وهو من أئمة أهل السنة ليس من أهل البدع. It's not from the people of Bid'ah. Imam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, Sahib Bulugh al-Maram, Sahib Mada, the one who authored Bulugh al-Maram, وكذلك Fath al-Bari, Sharh Bukhari, and other works Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani has. Ibn Kathir, Abu Fadah, Ahmad Din, Shaykh al-Islam, المحدث الفقيه العابد ماذا ابن كثير يكفي تفسيره. It's enough as tafsir. They try to say if you go towards Bidayah wa Nihaya, Bidayah wa Nihaya, his book of history, Tarikh, Samad, Bidayah wa Nihaya, where you mention everything from the beginning, Bidayah wa Nihaya, the end. Again, Allah Musta'an. You know how many volumes that that right is 30 something, depending on the size of the paper, 30 the print, 37, 35 volumes. Of course, you're going to have something in there. But again, ulama said we don't know anything in that Bidayah and Nihaya that shows he has problems in Aqidah. Yani Ibn Kathir, Allah Musta'an. Allah Musta'an. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And definitely his tafsir. As ulama, they said Allah Azza wa Jal protected him from the tafsir of all those imams during his time that have issues, ilahiyah, issues when it comes to Allah Azza wa Jal and Asma wa Sifat. Tafsir ibn Kathir is one of the only ones, wallahi, that you'll find doesn't have that problem. You look at the narration, you see the chain, you see his tarjih, hakada. Tafsir ibn Kathir. And again, this is one of the main books we study in the match. Tafsir ibn Kathir, Shaykh Muslim Al-Nawawi, which again, we don't deem him to be from the Asha'ira, he's from Ahlul Sunnah. Have some mistakes, but what was the aim, what you see in his dawah is not calling to those mistakes, but we're only highlighting them because they want to say that his dawah is the dawah, yani, with regards to their dawah of changing the sifat. So they try to say he didn't have mistakes and we follow him, and he brought to us the way of the Prophet, the way of the Sahaba, and the way of the Salaf. That's why we highlighted his mistakes, not to make him a kafir, not to make him an innovator, and not to say he's not from the Imams, Ahlul Sunnah, with his mistakes, Imam Nawawi. Last but not least, Imam Al-Bayhaqi. Now, Imam Al-Bayhaqi. If Imam Al-Bayhaqi, and we studied his book, the Maj as well, 2 volumes, he has not sure, but the Imam, what's this other book we studied? SubhanAllah, I'll come back to it, but it's 2 volumes, mashallah. Nice hadith book of Imam Al-Bayhaqi. We studied this in the match. While we give respect to that and study that, Sunan Sughra. Now, Sunan Sughra, Imam Al-Bayhaqi. Yes, Kubra and Sughra. Sughra is 2 volumes. Because we consider them to be from the Imam, the Sunnah. Now, with all of this Wahhabism that they claim about Muhammad al-Wahhab and the people that agree with him and that we are kuffar and we are Ahlul Bid'ah, why would Sheikh Fawzan, when he's asked about Imam Bayhaqi, why would Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, when he's asked about Imam Bayhaqi, the one that they claim was most extreme, and that no doubt he was one of the people that was ashad ala asha'ir wa sufiyah wa mu'taziliyah wa jahmiyah, wa huwa Sheikh Muhammad Aman al-Jami rahimahullah ta'ala, called Jami'ites, who was from the ulama of Ahlul Sunnah in Medina, whose origin was from Africa. He was asked about Imam Bayhaqi. Was Imam Bayhaqi from the people of Asha'ir or Ahlul Sunnah? He said, Imam Bayhaqi kan Imam min Ahlul Sunnah. Allahu Akbar. Now, if was anybody was told and said he was Asha'ir, don't you think Muhammad Imam al-Jami said, Kana min a'immati Islam and Ahlul Sunnah. Imam. And he praised all of his works, and he said, if you had anything with regards to mistakes, Asma wa Sifat, said, Yasir jiddan. When you go to Imam al-Bayhaqi, he has, Tabarak wa Ta'ala will conclude with these points. he has a book called Kitab al-Asma wa Sifat. Kitab al-Asma'i wa Sifat. Now the Asha'ira tried to use that book, but really when you go to the chapter where he mentions Bab al-Alu, that Allah is above everything, he mentions the following. He mentions يعني كان العرب قروضا يعني في يعني بموضع على يعني في موضع على. He said the Arabs used to use the article fi, like they said that the slave girl said fis sama'i, Allah is in the heavens. Imam al-Bayhaqi starts by in the Arabic language saying that the Arabs used to put the article fi as it relates to in the place that means something is above. That's the first thing he says. And he mentions like the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَسِيحُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَسِيحُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. And Allah Azza wa Jal said, and travel fi al-ard, meaning above the earth. He mentioned the statement of Fir'aun. Allah mentioned in the Quran where he said, لَأُصَلِّبَنَّكُمْ فِي جُذٍ في جُذٍ. Now, he said to those people that were going to believe in Musa, he said, I'm going to take you, and here, fi judhin doesn't mean he's going to put them inside the palm branches. He's going to take the palm branches and raise them, hang them off the ground with the palm branches. So Imam Bayhaqi is showing that fi in the Quran, the Arabs understood this in the language of fi does not always mean يعني ظروفا داخلا جاء بمعنى استعلى أو يعني علوا أو على. That fi carries the meaning يعني above, يعني هكذا. As it relates to the statement of the Prophet, where he said, أتأمني أتأمني وأنا أمينا من في السماء. Do you not believe in me? Do you all not believe in me when I'm the one who believes? And the point about this hadith, he said, when I'm the one who believed, and the one يعني في السماء, meaning على يعني السماء. Now, so Imam Bayhaqi is bringing these evidence to show that he believed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above everything, above his throne. As for the hadith, they try to bring it down. We'll stop here. As for the hadith of the Jariyah, then they say that Imam Bayhaqi yani didn't bring this narration yani in full. He brought it munqata'a, the hadith from Imam Muslim, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, hadith Muawiyah ibn yani Sufyan, when he smacked the Jariyatu, slave girl. Imam Bayhaqi brought the narration that has the word he said that in that chain was mentioned everything except the story of Muawiyah. And they said this is because يعني فيه يعني الاختلاف يعني في أسانيد في صحيح مسلم، وأن هذا حديث ليس بالصحيح، أو يعني المعنى ليس يعني كما يقولون يعني فوق يعني عرش. Imam Bayhaqi يعني didn't bring the full narration. He brought the short narration, yani, and even in that chain he said the wording in the chain. It said, مثل هذا معنى, meaning the meaning of the other narrations is clear. So they try to use that to make it like shubuhat, and the wording, you can't take the hadith of the Jariyah, it's not authentic, it doesn't mean, above the heavens, Allah is not in any direction, Allahumma musta'an. So this, is in defense of those imams that they try to hijack and hide behind, that all of those ulama, that we mentioned that the likes of Imam Barakallahu Fikum, الذهبي وابن حجر الأسقلاني وكذلك ابن كثير والبيهقي هكذا إمام النووي لم يبدعهم ولا يكفرهم على أخطائهم، وإن كان في بعض أسماء والصفات، لأنهم من أهل السنة، أمتي أهل السنة، وكل أناس بشرية يصيب ويخطئ إلا النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. إن شاء الله تبارك وتعالى كفي هنا صلى على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما كثيرا، والحمد لله رب العالمين. ياكم شيخ، تفضلوا.